Good day, class. I'm Mr. Obina Iweke, MBA Management, Emergency Management, and presently I'm rounding off my program in PhD Management. I'm going to take you on the course Organizational Behavior, BAM312, Part 1. We're going to look at the essence of behavior in the organization, especially with interest in people or individuals who form groups in the organization. A manager needs to know more about this because every day he must deal with people. Failure to understand their behavior will create a problem in predicting how they are going to behave and how to control their activities towards a desirable end. Now we're going to look at the following concepts. First, definition, fundamental, nature of work, job satisfaction, boredom, job satisfaction, and skills. Now, definitely in psychology, we have found out that people have the problem of understanding why people put up certain attitude or behavior from time to time. But the most important thing is that as a manager works with people, he has to understand why certain behavior come up from time to time and how he's going to make sure that such behaviors are in line with what he desires to achieve. Now let us look at the issue of the complexity. In the sense that if a man comes to work in the morning and there are certain things that happen in his house that were not favorable, definitely he's going to leave it out in the organization. How? You may see your boss in the morning and you say, good morning. Instead of him to reply, as he did yesterday, good morning and how are you? You will say, what is good in your money? Invariably, you begin to wonder, why should he put up such an attitude again? And at times you see people, they're happy, they do a better job in a good day, and on a bad day, they're very unhappy. They're not going to put up a good effort. Even when they do, their productivity is going to be low. Even when their productivity is high, their relationship with people may not be a smooth one, and will make a complaint and say, why must this man change now? All these things boils down to behavior. And now looking at the definition, behavior. An organization is a group of people who must interact, who must work together for them to achieve an objective. Almost and always there's what we call a structure. And within this structure we have what we call communication. It is the communication that determines the behavior of these people. And that is why we say organization is the behavior of people in the organizational setting. Behavior of people in the organizational setting. That is the commonest definition. And most often, we begin to wonder, why should an individual be interested in the behavior of people in an organization? Simple. Because you must predict them and you must control them. These are the two major issues, prediction and control. A situation whereby you cannot predict the behavior of a worker, there's no how you can determine what he's going to do at any particular time. And then a situation whereby you can predict and you cannot control, it means that the individual will put up behavior that are not acceptable or that may not be needed at any particular time to achieve a desirable result. So we now found out that organizational behavior is the study of people or individuals or group behavior in an organizational setting to enable a manager predict and control them towards achieving a desirable result. So you must study their behavior. You must understand their behavior. And based from the understanding, you can now predict and control them towards a desirable result. Most often, people begin to wonder, why should we be so much interested in organizational behavior? We should know that an organization is made up of people. And people normally is seen as the core, the main thing in an organization, because people make things to happen. A situation whereby these people come from different backgrounds, you should expect them to have different values, and you should expect them to put up different behavior. And most behavior are unacceptable. In as much as it is accepted by the group or by the people from their background, once you come to the organization, there are values you must uphold. And it is the duty of the manager to understand your behavior, try to predict your behavior, and also control that behavior towards the acceptable way or towards achieving desirable results. And that is what organizational behavior is all about. And the manager should also know that people are unpredictable. In as much as the behaviors from time to time may not be predictable. But if you can have an understanding why certain activities come to play in their life from time to time, you can influence such activities. Like there are workers who do well in the morning. Later in the day, they don't put up good work. In the evening, they are not good. What some managers do is to schedule them to perform tasks in the morning time. In the afternoon, you give them a break. And you find out that you have understood how they behave. And for them to give you productivity, you must use them in the morning. Failure to understand that they do better work in the morning becomes a bigger problem for the organization at large. Now, what are the fundamentals? The building block we have in our organizational behavior is the individual, the group, the organization itself, and the last one is the environment. These are the fundamentals. Failure to understand the role or the essence of these four variables means that you don't achieve anything through organizational behavior. The first one is the individual. Who is an individual? An individual is a person like us here. We're in our homes, we apply for jobs in organization, or we apply for employment. And before we know it, we are given letter of appointment. And you stay in Port Harcourt. Another person stays in Lagos. Another stays in one village in Imo State. Another in Abia. These are individuals, and they have what we call individual differences. As they come to the organization, they are coming in as a group. Individuals are moving and they become a group. Now they have values they uphold based on their background. Now you find out that without these individuals, you cannot have group, you cannot have organization. And that is why the individual comes into the organization as one person. And by the time they join forces together and combine together, they become a group. And that is why if you remove the individuals, you cannot have a group, neither will you have organization. The environment may be a constant, but these three variables must be there before the environment can now influence them. Now outside the individuals, you have the group. And you find out that once people join an organization as an individual, they find themselves in one group or the other. Even some find themselves in more than two groups at a time. You can see yourself in the marketing department, you're a member of that group. You can see yourself in a village association, you're a member of that group. You can see yourself in the union of the organization, you're a member of that group. But the most important thing is that there's what we call group dynamics, activities that happens in the group. It is the group dynamic that influences the behavior of the people. Why? Because each group must have what we call a norm, which prescribes the standard of behavior that is acceptable once you are a member. So when you now join the group, your behavior will be influenced. That is why when someone joins the bank, he's not a member of a banking industry. In fact, you see him start wearing suit and tie, wearing the gentleman's clothes, which means he's not complying with what the group requires. But if this same man leaves the bank as an individual, he will not dress like the bankers. If he leaves also the bank and move into the marketing section, marketing organization and marketing outfit. You see him wearing short sleeve shirts, chinos trousers, and shoes for distribution, not dressing in the way it should be. Now, the organization is the highest level where you have a combination of individuals who forms groups and then the organization itself. But the most important thing here is the structure. And it is the structure in the organization that determines the behavior of the people. Failure for you to adapt to the structure of the organization means you are not going to give out a particular behavior. And that is why the organization structures you, the organization defines you, the organization makes sure that the specifications, you abide by them. And that, in the long run, will modify your behavior towards a desirable end. Now, you find out that most people, you ask them, where do you work? They tell you, I'm a banker. Being a member of a bank, a firm, the way he dresses, it reflects that, yes, he's different. The way he behaves reflects that he's different. But mere looking at an individual who is not a banker but a nurse or a doctor, you notice that also his mode of dressing differs. This is because the organization he finds himself gives him a structure, and he must build himself into that structure or factor himself into that structure so that desired behavior may be realized. And finally, under the fundamental, we have what we call environment. Most often people do not know what environment does. Environment configures behavior. Configures behavior. What do we mean by configuring behavior? Once you find yourself in an environment, you either adapt or you adopt. If you adopt it the way it is, it then means that you're going to be like that. If you must adapt, it then means that you have to restructure or shade off certain things to take up whatever the environment says it should be. In most cases, we see it as a fixed constraint. Fixed constraint. That the things that are beyond your control, that the things that you cannot change, but you must take cognizance of them. Why do we see it as a fundamental of organizational behavior? Because as soon as an individual joins an organization, he finds himself in a group. As soon as the group gets involved in organization, they are structured, and they must operate in an environment which defines how they are going to work or behave. Now, looking at the nature of work, most of us will begin to wonder, what has work got to do with organizational behavior? Now, the question I will ask us is, why do we go to join organization? Is it to just go there and sit down and watch things unveil? Or is it for us to go there and do certain things for the organization to achieve its objective? Now, work is an action. You put in what we call effort, time, skill, knowledge, just to bring out an output for the organization. Now, reasons why we work differ. Some for economic reasons, just to get salaries, solve their problem. Some for status reasons, just to show that they belong to a particular group. Some also work because of religious setting. The scripture made it point blank, there is no food for the lazy man, which means you have to work. And you find out that there is always a reward for working. It can be a positive reward, it can be a negative reward. In the sense that in organization where you don't work according to the desirable end, then do not expect a reward that is favorable. For most of us who come to work late, you put in less. Your boss may know it and keep quiet. At the end of the month, he will give you suspension and pay you half salary. That's a reward for not working. But the most important thing I want us to understand when we talk about work with organizational behavior is that work is an attitude. Work is an attitude. What do you mean by an attitude? Something you either love to do it, something you want to do, something you have the drive to get involved in, or something you may not want to do. An organization needs people with positive attitudes to work. And the most important thing here is not just the work. is what you give in and what you bring out at the end of the day. Now let us look at the relationship between input and output. In an organization where work is seen as an attitude, productivity is always high, which means you put in some and bring out something bigger. There's what we call efficiency of production. But in the civil service, where there's a problem with work attitude, you notice that their input is nothing to write home about, and their output is a very bad scenario. Now let us look at the organization itself, the public and the private. The question you ask yourself, why is it that a public servant go to work, some public servants go to work by 10 or by 9, and they leave office by 2 or before 4? The same public servant, when he's employed in the private sector, will now leave for work as early as 7:30 and still finish by 4. Now, which means organization has changed. And once organization changes, the behavior will also change, because the demand of the private sector or the private firm is not the same demand from the public sector or the public firm. And which means at the end of the day, the way you see work is going to be different, or the perspective or perception towards work will definitely change. And we have found out that in most organizations where people don't see work as an attitude, the organization dies gradually. And what is affected is productivity, because there will be laziness. The productivity is going to be low. Not only will the productivity be low, also the behavior of the people towards putting in things like effort, time, skill, knowledge will be very low or withdrawn. Now, after looking at the issue of the nature of work, we now ask ourselves, in that structure created in the organization, what do we do? You see what we call task, because tasks are derived from work. When you divide work into tasks, it then means that each department will perform one task or the other towards achieving the entire work. So in order that the structure in the organization creates the task, and collectivity of tasks achieved by different departments will lead to the attainment of the work. But I want us to understand that each department requires or demands a different attitude to work. And that different attitude to work is dependent on the nature of the task or the nature of the work the organization is going to do. Now, there's what we call job satisfaction.